Hi everyone. What I want to do in this video is talk about a Netflix show that's been out for a while, but I just recently discovered it. It's called Abstract: The Art of Design. There's 8 episodes, and it seems like each episode focuses on a different artist. So far I've only seen the first episode. It's about a supremely talented illustrator. His name is Christoph Niemann. He's German born, and he moved to New York after art school, and he did a lot of amazing work for the New Yorker and some other publications. And I just want to talk a little bit about what he says in this show about abstraction and design, and work ethic itself is very interesting, and I found it to be very inspiring, and I hope that I can inspire you all as well with his words and some of my interpretation on it. So let's dive into this episode. So while Christoph has all of these acclamations, it's not actually as intimidating as I thought it was going to be when I started watching. He kind of just breaks down this romantic idea around being a designer. Very early in the episode, he talks about how he moved to New York on his own, and there was this Starbucks that he wanted to sit in and look out the window and be like this sort of this artist, immersed in the city and just creating and maybe having quick interactions with people. But he said that working in the Starbucks was actually very distracting and confusing even, and produced bad results in his work. So I found this very interesting because this is something that I tried to do, but I wanted to work near this big fountain at Princeton University. So one day I tried it. I went over with a few canvases, and I was just doing some finishing touches, detailing, outlining, and it was really distracting. I mean, first of all, these concrete benches that they have to sit on are very uncomfortable to slouch over the canvas. People are skateboarding, kids are swimming in the fountain, people are walking by asking what I'm doing, asking to take pictures if they're for sale. It was not an effective place to work. Christoph says that his most effective workplace is in his studio, all alone, 9 to 5, and he spends most of the time staring at paper. I wanted to try this out, just working alone, totally uninterrupted, and it was really hard. I set myself at a minimum of 2 hours per day, and I did this maybe for 2-3 weeks before it started to fall out a little bit. But to sit down and just tell yourself to create, it's difficult because in your brain you're okay, I want to make something beautiful. And for me, when I sat down and I couldn't just create something beautiful right away, I got frustrated, and I started to draw all these angry and ugly faces, which really surprised me. First of all, faces are the last thing I ever would have drawn. People have asked me to draw them before, but I'm no, I don't do faces. I don't do real things at all. I wouldn't even draw a picture of a cup, something simple. I only like to do, shapes and colors. But I really surprised myself. My technique of drawing noses and eyes and mouth were improving just because I was forcing myself to sit there and draw, even though I didn't really have any inspiration at the moment to create something that I don't know, I really I wanted to create. So on this topic, Christoph, he quotes an artist named Chuck Close, and Chuck Close says that inspiration is for amateurs and the rest of us just show up and get to work every day. So this was a little hard for me to hear, but once I tried it out, I realized that it's true. I mean, inspiration can strike anywhere, anytime, and it comes in hard, but nothing will actually come of it if you don't just sit down and do the work. So it's at this moment in the show that there's a little animation of a man sitting at a desk, and he's trying to work, and he gets so frustrated that he rips his hair out, and his hair turns into a knight in shining armor and just rides off into the sunset. So I thought that was really clever and creative and on point. And these illustrations are kind of sprinkled throughout the show, and it really adds a lot visually. I'm pretty sure that Christoph was probably the one doing the animation. So the style of the show reflects the style of Christoph's illustration work. So there's a lot to be gained visually from watching the show, and I'm sure it was intentional. So that was probably done between the filmmaker and Christoph. And there are some candid shots throughout this episode of like Christoph and the filmmaker like fighting with each other. Not like really, really fighting, but kind of struggling is a better word. Because the filmmaker wants to show more of Christoph, more authenticity, and just show some regular, everyday, routine things. And Christoph is like, not really for that transparency. I mean, he's kind of designed his life around abstraction, and that's like so true to him. He doesn't even want to show himself brushing his teeth on camera. And he brings up this example. So he talks about the cartoon Charlie Brown, how you never really see or hear the adults. You only see them from the knees down, and they kind of make like a wah, wah, wah noise instead of talking. And he makes this great point that even if the adults were designed perfectly, voiced perfectly, if you were to zoom out a little bit and just see these like perfectly designed animations, it would ruin that really kind of like fun and intriguing aspect of the show. So this kind of really opened my eyes to the power of abstraction, and also just like widened my view of what abstraction and design really is. So on a personal note, I never really understood why I was such a visual person. I was always a visual learner. I love going to museums, seeing artwork, and just like looking at nice things, I guess. But I always thought that was just kind of like, that's who I am, and there's really nothing behind it. But Christoph says some things in this episode that makes me realize why it is I am a visual person. So when an artist creates something, or really when anyone creates something that's like from the heart, it's their realization of how they see the world. So if someone creates something and then I were to come and see it and feel like I like the way that it looks, I feel like it represents like myself and how I see the world, it's kind of just like this medium of connection. It's a bridge between two people. And when you see something like that, it's in that moment that you realize that you're part of something bigger and you're not alone, and someone else sees the world just the same way as you. So that was just like really eye-opening for me, and I started to kind of like see art differently. I take a lot of pictures of art when I go to museums. That's what some of this stuff is. And I kind of started to realize like there's a reason why I like it. It's not just like some cool looking thing. Anyway, before I get a little bit too deep in, sorry about that guys, my camera died, so I switched cameras. Hopefully it's not too different of quality. My favorite thing that Christoph says in this episode, and I hope this can inspire you like it inspired me, I think it's really good for people who are kind of, frustrated when they try to create something and they feel like they're not good at it. Christoph says that he's not being coy when he says that he's not good at his craft, even though, he has all of these like people praising him and he's obviously a great illustrator. It's about being painfully honest with yourself, that you're not good enough at something to do it flawlessly on command. And I found this really inspiring because so many times I'm just like, I sit down and try to do something and it doesn't turn out how I want and I get frustrated. And I've taken this to kind of be a more careless artist, a more careless creator. Just create just because, and you'll get better with skill as you work, but you'll also find yourself. So being a more careless artist, you kind of get a little bit truer to yourself. So I found this really inspiring, and I've really taken this into my life, and hopefully you know what I mean, and maybe you could try it out too. My favorite thing about Christoph as a person is that he's kind of designed a life around himself to be like a comfortable and a natural fit, and I think that's a lesson that everyone could stand to learn. Basically anything that Christoph said in this episode just really had me being like, yes, preach. Like, I thought that the wisdom was so dense, and if I were to tell you all of my favorite quotes and moments of this episode, I'd probably just narrate the entire thing to you. So needless to say, you have my recommendation to go watch it, and I hope you enjoy. If you have seen it, I'd like to interact a little bit because I don't know anyone else who's watched this show, and if it's meant anything to you. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Have you tried any of like his work ethics out? Has it made a difference in your life? I'm really interested to know. So if you like this video, please give me a like, and if you're interested in seeing my reviews of the future episodes, please subscribe and you'll get notifications when those come out. So thanks everyone.